Communism is evil through and through. There's nothing good about communism. And not in the family, not outside the family. I mean, if Nassim was serious and he actually practiced communism in the household, his wife would leave.
So it brings me to that question, though, is like, I'm 100% firm believer that the government's only responsibility is military defense and private property protection. That's it. Everything else, education, leave. Private corporation, that's it, leave. You should just defend my freedom of right, speech, my sovereign individual, protect the borders, and protect my right on property. Everything else, bugger off. Correct. But at the exact same time, what we're seeing is the opposite. We're seeing the bureaucrats, as I call them, grow in employees every single year. So it's not the opposite. The government increases by size every single year. You can't fire these people. It's impossible. So they have no accountability whatsoever. So they can make a million times mistakes, but no one's held accountable for these mistakes. And yet here we are sitting back and, we're preaching what Iran talked about, individual responsibility, self-sovereignship, more or less kind of like the non-aggressive principles. But I'm also a realist. What I see right now, I still think if I'm looking around the world, still United States is still one of the best countries per se, comparing to the global. Even here in Canada, I don't have the same constitutional rights as you guys have in the United States. Freedom of speech is not really freedom of speech in Canada, to be honest with you. Like, I can end up to jail saying some things over here. Reminds me like communist fucking Yugoslavia. The stories my parents told me. And the question is, what can we do? Is there any actual steps that we can take to change things?
I mean, the only thing, I mean, people always want shortcuts and they always want a quick solution to these things, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I wish there was, and I don't know if there is one. I don't know. To me, it's about education. It's about speaking. It's about doing podcasts and writing editorials and recommending people read Atlas Shrugged and trying to get the word out there to people. People have been inculcated with an ideology of what Einstein called altruism, an ideology that says that basically your life, your happiness is not what's important. Your moral duty, your moral responsibility is to take care of others. And if you have to sacrifice for that, self-sacrifice for that, if you're worse off for that, then that's okay. That's why we view Mother Teresa as a moral hero, right? Because she suffered to help other people. Bill Gates helped many more people than Mother Teresa did, but he made money doing it, so that's a no-no.
Yeah.
So we live in a culture that believes that self-interest, that pursuing your own happiness, that pursuing your own life, that pursuing your own values is bad. Now that is inculcated through Christianity, that's inculcated through our secular philosophers, that's inculcated from every direction in the culture. And that's what we have to overcome. We have to undo the programming that so many people have just accepted and bought into. And the revolution really is not about economics or politics. It's really an ethical revolution. We have to teach people that their life is theirs, that they should be pursuing their happiness, not just because that's what the self-help gurus say, but that's because it's their moral responsibility. And the only way they can pursue their happiness is by taking personal responsibility, by thinking for themselves, by producing for themselves. And that people who become dependent on government are never going to be happy, cannot be happy, because they've given up their own self-esteem, their own self-respect, because now they live off of other people. They're like beggars in the street. So the only way to attain happiness is to be an independent, thinking, rational being. And that, to convince people of that, is going to take just a lot of educating, a lot of speaking, a lot of getting them to read the right books. And we're up against everybody else in the culture. Everybody's against us. Right?
But it seems like getting worse and worse at the exact same time. Like, I made a video the other day and I'm looking and I see people actively sticking their hands out and saying, please, government, track my phone for this stuff. Please, government, give me money. I can't even wipe my own ass anymore. I just can't even be a human being.
You said it before when you said the government controls education, and it shouldn't. It controls education, which means it controls kids from when they're very young, controls their minds, controls their attitudes, tells them what is true and what is not, what is knowledge and what is not. It doesn't teach them to think for themselves. It doesn't teach them reality, facts, history, what really happens, math, science. Those things are not important. What's important is social sciences and kumbaya, and we all emote together and feel and socialize. Socialization is really important. And as a consequence, you get these snowflakes, these kids who are the results of this educational system. They can't think, can't produce for themselves. They can't be entrepreneurs. They can't go work, get a decent job, and they don't know anything. So they think socialism is wonderful because they don't know anything. They think the government will solve all their problems because that's all they've been taught. That's all they've been. So our job is to undo the programming and to get them when they're young, to try to get them when they're 15, 16, 17, and to really undo everything that the government schools have programmed into them. And again, it's hard, and we're probably going to lose, certainly in the short run, but I think it's the only thing we can do.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because when I watch some of your videos with the students, you have some who are like almost triggered. They're like, "Oh, this is impossible." But then you have the select few who you kind of almost in real time you can see their gears are like, "Wait a second, shit, that kind of makes sense."
Afterwards, after talks like that, telling me, that it opened their eyes, that they completely change their attitudes towards the world. So yeah, I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to go out there and talk to people and present them. These new ideas, these different ideas are not just going to flop down on top of them. And too many kind of within the free market movement, if you will, too many people focus on economics and focus on economics all the time. It's not convincing to people. You need to be able to make a moral, ethical case for individualism, for capitalism, for freedom. And the only way to do that is to attack things that people don't like attacking, like religion, like philosophy, like the ethics their mom taught them, right? But it's the only way to do it. And in Europe, you have to attack tribalism on top of all that. So at least in America, we have a little less, although it's growing, of the tribalistic attitude. But yes, you have to upend all the fundamental beliefs people have.